He's Howard Eibach, a former copywriter and creative director and the author of 2 books on the creative brief.
And he's Henry Gomez, an ad agency strategist with 27 years of experience. Together, we're the Brief Brothers. We love to talk about creative briefs, briefing, and advertising. Henry, we have a special guest today, someone who has never shown his face out in public, although he's probably very well known to LinkedIn viewers and on Twitter. And we're going to let him introduce himself, and we're going to say hello to him in just a moment. Let's join the conversation. All right, Henry, we're back for another episode, and you and I are both kind of jazzed because we have with us someone who has never shown his pretty mug on camera before. His name, at least among those in the LinkedIn world and on Twitter, he's known as the Adweak Editor, also known as Paul Taylor. Today, he's here with us as Mickey Taylor, and he tells me, we had a conversation before we got started.
Adweak, W-E-A-K.
Right. He told me that, he's coming out, showing his face because he's been released from the witness protection program. He did something that all of us in the ad agency world have dreamed of doing. He killed about, 6 or 7 of his clients? No, I'm just kidding. He only killed one.
Only one.
Only one. So, Mickey, Adweak Editor, Henry and I are jazzed to have you on the Brief Brothers. Thanks for being here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And also, like you said, this is the first time ever that the Adweak Editor, AKA Paul Taylor, AKA Mickey Taylor, has ever appeared on camera. We are
honored.
It just happened, and it's time that, people see, like the avatar on Adweak is some guy in swim goggles, and a lot of people think that that's who I am. He's way better looking than I am. So I'm sorry to tell the audience that it's not me, but we originally started Adweak. We wanted to be anonymous because it was me. I worked at Chiat, and my partner, another writer who worked at Team One. And we just did it for fun, but we thought we can't use our real names because we could get fired for some of this stuff. And so we registered the Adweak site in Guatemala or something under an assumed name. We used assumed names for a long time. Nobody knew who we were, and everybody was trying to guess who we were. But that was the reason and then it sort of stuck. We just, for a long time, just wanted to be a little bit enigmatic. And one of the reasons was, look, I work in the business, and, a lot of stuff we mock are some of the same things that I've been guilty of. So I didn't want people to say, well, you do the same thing, like you're mocking it, but you do the same thing, which was true. So that was one of the reasons. And so now, I think we've been pretty careful about not offending anyone. So now it's time for Paul Taylor, which Paul is my middle name. I had to go onto LinkedIn and show my real driver's license to show I'm a real person, and I had to do that because they didn't believe me. And that's a long story, LinkedIn long story. But so yeah, I think now people are, they know Paul Taylor is Mickey Taylor for the most part, and I'm Mickey Taylor.
Well, it says so right in your jacket, so it can't,
that's right.
It says so in your jacket. I mean, you can't lie, right?
No.
So, there are very few people or entities on LinkedIn that make me laugh out loud. You are definitely one of them at the top. I see you as kind of a cross between Tom Fishburne, who also skewers us in the industry, more marketing side than on the advertising side. And we talked about this on the phone the other day, and that's the Onion. Although I think you skew closer to the Onion than to Tom Fishburne.
Way closer, because we steal everything from the Onion.
Well, as I said on the phone with you, there's an old saying in our business: amateurs plagiarize, professionals steal. And I never advocate plagiarism, but I do advocate stealing. In fact, there's a great book. I forget, maybe I have it here. It's called Steal Like an Artist, right?
Well, you clearly do not have the Adweak book on your shelf, because we did do a book.
Oh, no,
just like
I don't.
The Onion. So speaking of the Onion, that's the reason this started. Was my buddy and I were at a bar, and we thought, we were talking about Onion articles, and we thought, wouldn't it be funny to do the Onion but for advertising? And so we basically like down to like they do initial caps on every word in their headlines. So we like, and I know it's not correct grammatically, but so we thought we'd do it. They use a lot of the same photos over and over again, and we said, well, we'll do the same thing. So we did and I think I told you at one point I talked to someone at the Onion and I said, we're sorry, we thought you would tell us to stop doing it. And he said, no, we love what you're doing. And I also know for sure, I've seen Onion articles that they took exactly what we wrote, but that's fine too.
You mentioned the photography, and I guess that's one of the things. I imagine that this is like royalty-free stock photography from a bank somewhere, or
it's absolutely 100% stolen.
Okay.
And
I love it.
I've been very, very careful of stealing it from some obscure source, like in New Zealand or a real estate agent in like South America, because there's image software that they could track it. But anyway, I've never been popped for it.
Well, you know that someone now from amongst our 250 or so followers are going to go do some deep digging, and
there was only one time that a woman, and I felt bad for her, a woman said, "That's my picture," and I said, so I'll go back to the avatar of the editor. We stole that photo. We just thought it was funny and whatever. And at one point, the person who took that photo, he's a commercial photographer. And he said, that's my photo. And we said, so sorry. We'll take it down. And he's like, nah, just keep using it. And so I don't even know who he is, but he was like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Because you owned up to it and he saw, the other thing is you're doing a lampooning thing, and you're not trying to make money off of it.
Right.
You're bringing a little bit of smiles to the world, especially those of us in the drudgery of advertising. But the other thing that, and you mentioned it, was the repetition of the photographs, which I always struck me as funny too, because you always, like, the young strategist was always the same young strategist. I was just like looking through recent posts, and you had two with the same dog. Like, one was like that the agency had hired a freelance dog to come and make the office look cozy during a pitch, and the other one was that the agency had hired an AI dog to replace.
I remember that one. Yeah.
That post went bananas. A lot of times I don't know how well they're going to do. I got a good idea now that I've done 7,000 headlines, over 7,000, I think. I have a good idea of what's going to hit. When the dog thing always hits, and I don't know. I
love dogs.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that like, I've had posts on LinkedIn that have gotten 250,000 views, like crazy. I'm like, wow, how did that happen? But the dog thing works, and we tend to use the same thing. We tend to use the same people, and just because the Onion does it, and the reason I steal photos is because they just feel more real than stock photos.
Yeah,
we had Jason Fox on a while ago. He's the Lee Clow's beard.
And he's reached out to me. He's a fan.
Yeah, and he's doing something like, I don't think it's as ostensibly attempted to be funny, although often they are funny and entertaining. But he's trying to channel Lee Clow, and he's been doing this. I don't know if it's 7,000. He's done a couple of thousand, 3,000.
Yeah, he's
and
good. I like his stuff.
We talked about the fact, and he mentioned that it's hard to keep the thing going, keep coming up with really good stuff. And you've done it, I think, considerably many more posts than he has. How do you do it? How do you keep it going?
That's a great question. And I've always felt like this is going to run out either from my content, or people are just going to be tired of the same thing. And and if that were to happen, I would just get out of it. But it keeps going, and I can't explain it. And every now and then, when I think I don't have any fodder, something comes up.
You're a writer by training, by practice?
Yes.
Okay, so your muscle is well honed and practiced.
I think that's a good way to put it. For sure. It's like, I don't want to liken myself to a musician at all, but musicians.
I think that's not a bad analogy. I mean, we've talked to George Tannenbaum. He's one of the better copywriters out there. And George says, if you don't use it, you lose it. You just got to practice
true.
every day.
And I love George. I've talked to him a couple times because he's a fan as well. But it's one of those things where it's just it's like musicians, they could just like pick up a guitar and play. So I think that's what has happened with this. And I like I said, I've always thought like I'm going to run out of material, but it hasn't happened yet. And then I thought also I'm going to run out of an audience where there's going to be like, seen it before, same stuff.
Have you repeated yourself? Have you ever repeated yourself?
Oh yeah. The only reason I do is because for a couple of reasons. One, we get, and on Twitter, just Twitter alone, probably between 500 and 1,000 new followers a month.
Wow.
So it's a new audience, right? That have never seen anything we've done. And then other times it's because when you do a tweet, not everyone sees it.
Yeah, I was about to say, you don't get access to all of your followers when you do something organically.
Right. And so only a couple times has someone said, oh yeah, you did this before, but they always follow up with like, oh, but I love it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really indict me for like, you're just repeating yourself. So those are two reasons. Because one, not everybody's seen it. And the other one is new audience every day.
Yeah. So, I can't claim to having seen all of your posts over the years.
Oh, come on.
So
there's 7,000 of them.
Sorry about that. When I've got nothing better to do, I'll go back and take a look. But if you've had a chance to look at even a few seconds of what Henry and I do, we do like to talk about the creative brief from time to time.
I love that.
So tell me, have you made, wry comments, wry asides, posts about the creative brief, and could you share some of your more favorite?
Absolutely. I don't know if I could pull them out of my rear end right now. But for one, I like to spread the mockery over all aspects of advertising, whether it's the creative brief, the creative process, copywriters, art directors, strategists. I never wanted Adweak to be a bone to pick from a copywriter. So if you look at the feed, it's about clients, it's about PR agencies, it's about stupid copywriters, dumb art directors. But the creative brief is certainly something we've touched on before, and more or less the sort of maybe just the process. And the one thing that I noticed, to talk about creative brief, which is pretty much dominated by brand strategists and agency strategists, even account people for a little bit, like maybe creatives. But when I mock a specific thing or a job title, let's say it's a brand strategist at an agency, the people that respond to it are brand strategists, and say, they're like, this is me, I just went through this is my life. It's funny because it's true. So they're the first. Everybody loves poking fun at themselves. So we've created this monster, not only with creative briefs, but the creative process. Everything about what's going on is like a target of my mockery. And a lot of times I use Adweak as like, is it just me or is everyone else feeling like this? So I'll post something just as taking a temperature of the world, and I was like, oh my god, everybody else is feeling the same way.
Yeah. So I was just looking at one. This isn't directly about the brief, but this one was. It says 22 hours ago. Breaking: client bursts into laughter at agency's proposal of 6 to 8 week brand immersion process before beginning 5 to 7 week ideation process on creative brief for new tagline. So yes. Yeah, the agency says it wants 13 weeks, and the client says you have one.
Yes, and then the agency says, "Okay, we'll do it."
Yes, absolutely.
But you know what? I wrote that specifically, knowing that I was going to be talking to you guys today, so I wrote it specifically for you guys.
Oh,
Awesome.
okay.
Awesome.
Well, we're honored.
So
But
you guys may want to retweet it or reshare it or however you do it. But
on
yeah,
on the topic of like running out of things to say, I think it's really a testament to the never ending ludicrous nature of the business.
yeah, and yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think every profession should have someone like you. I mean, lawyers, doctors, dentists, plumbers, they all deserve someone who mocks what it is that who we are, what we do, and who we work with.
I'm sure I'm sure that I'm biased, but I gotta think that this industry is tops them, a lot of them.
Well,
It is. And Howard, that's a great point because when I launched Adweak and it got so much popularity, this was a long time ago, and I had my own agency at the time. That was what paid the bills. Like Adweak was just a fun thing I did on the side. And so one of our targets for my ad agency was the restaurant business, because we had done Del Taco work, we had done Red Robin work. And so that was our sweet spot. And so I said, let's do Adweak, but for the fast food industry. And so we created what was called Food Chain Month Daily. And it was exactly what we did with Adweak, but we mocked the restaurant business industry. Oh my Lord, it worked the exact same way. We were getting emails from CMOs, from Carl's Jr. and Krispy Kreme. Like, this is awesome, keep doing it. So Howard, you're right. It works for everybody. Wants to laugh at themselves. And
well,
that's what
I spent a summer working as a stonemason, when I was in college. Maybe there's some,
we did the exact, and then we replicated it because we were working with networks, TV networks, FX, Lifetime. We did the exact same thing. We did TV Month Daily and did this same thing.
Nope. And no pushback from anybody in any of these.
No, they loved it.
Okay. So, but have you ever had any kind of like, what are you doing? That hurts. That's too close to the nerve.
That's a great question, because that's the reason we started off completely anonymous. We thought, are people going to be pissed off at us because we're mocking the business that they love, and I love this business. So we thought we were going to get people going, F you, how dare you, but they didn't. Nobody. And we have been very careful about not being mean-spirited and not being tone deaf. Not once has anyone ever, I'm not kidding. So what is it, 7,000 plus tweets? I don't think we've ever gotten a negative comment. Only awesome. One negative comment we got on LinkedIn was someone saying, this is not the place for humor. That should be on Facebook. Oh. And then there's other people on LinkedIn that said, you're the only reason I go to LinkedIn every day.
Yeah, we need to have something to laugh at. Yeah.
But
so how many posts do you do in a week? Is it a set number, or do you just whenever you get something?
That's another great question. One of the reasons I started on Twitter and then LinkedIn was to see if we can do maybe almost the exact opposite of what all the social pundits have said you should do. Like, you see an article every day that says you should post this many times a week. You should post at this time. You should include a meme. You should include a video, on and on. And so there is no schedule. Sometimes I'll post 3 times in a half hour. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then I learn from that. But so how
many years have you been doing this, Mickey?
So I think we started the initial sort of website in 2000. We were only going to do like 1 issue or 2. Just, we thought it was fun. And then everybody said, you got to keep doing this. So we're doing it. And then, like I said, I was running my own agency. So I, basically had a day job, and we just couldn't keep it up as a website. My writing partner left the business. And so I then just decided to turn it into Twitter. I registered the name, I think, in 2009, but I didn't do anything with it. And then, like I said, I decided to sort of be the sort of whatever you're supposed to do in social media. I mean, it's one of the reasons I think I told you that we don't follow anyone on Twitter. We follow one person, that's our client, but but we never wanted it to look like, oh, they have 97,000 followers because they're following 97,000 people. We have never, ever, ever promoted or spent a dime promote. Everything is organic. All the 30, 40,000 people on LinkedIn, completely organic. Same with Twitter. They come to us. We don't reach out at all. I've never
Well, you know, we're expecting to get 4 or 5 extra followers because you're on our show.
You absolutely should. Like I said, you are the first ones ever to completely out the editor, Paul Taylor, Mickey Taylor on video. No one's ever seen me.
Well, maybe.
Yeah,
we're fortunate.
Like I said, I don't know if I said it while we were recording or not. I fully expected you to come on with those Groucho Marx glasses and mustache, but you know, I was looking at the timeline because I've been a follower, been seeing stuff from you in my timeline for years.
Wow.
And I was looking at some of the more recent ones that made me chuckle, and this one it's going to be, you posted it 3 months ago, but it's coming up now, I think, being relevant. It's breaking Kevin Hart to appear in just 17 Super Bowl spots this year. and another one that made me guffaw was breaking art director once again suggests agency go after cannabis brands because he has a lot of experience with cannabis.
You know, it's funny you mention these because sometimes I don't even remember what I posted, but yeah, you know, it's all because I've lived it, and you know, you can't do this unless you've lived those things. So I you know, I don't think, you know, a person that has only had like 5 years in the agency business could write this stuff, because it's just you just don't have that. You just don't have that stuff. You know, back to, you know, you guys are the Brief Brothers. You know, the one thing that I've learned over the years is, you know, you got to have a brief, and a strong brief. But you know, that I always felt like, and I learned this from someone else, is that, you know, you have this, it's like, I always call it the Peyton Manning marketing offense. Is like, you have a plan, right? Like, he goes to the line, or when he was playing, he would go to the line, up to the line with a plan, a play, and then he would look at the defense and look at everything else, and he would call an audible. So I always felt like, we have this brief and it's a great brief, whatever, but always leave the door open for dumb luck, because it could creep in.
Henry has talked about that, and I really admired this about Henry. And, you know, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. One of the things, we've been doing this now for, this will be our 102nd, 103rd, 104th episode or something like that. So we've been doing this for almost 2 years. Yeah, it's amazing we can talk about the creative brief that much. But you know, Henry's an old windbag, and that's why the show succeeds. But he likes to say that when he writes a brief and he shares it with his creative department, he never springs a brief on the creatives. He always collaborates with the creative department. He says once he sent the brief out, it's basically his baby is in now other hands, and he has to accept the fact that maybe that brief has inspired some thinking that he just didn't even anticipate, that wasn't even part of the strategy he initiated. And he has to be humble. He has to be humble enough to accept the fact that someone might have a better idea, a better way of thinking. And I've always admired that about Henry.
You know what? That's super admirable, because I've worked with many strategic planners over the years, and that doesn't exist a lot with most.
Yeah,
where they just have like.
I learned early in my career. I had a specific example with a client where I wrote a brief. The brief was good, but when we came back to listen to ideas, one of the ideas was tangential to the brief. And I said, hold the phone, everybody, stop. I said, that's really a better insight than what I had written. And so we didn't even end up doing the commercial that inspired the change of direction. The change of direction inspired a whole new wave of commercials that were proposed, and ultimately one got approved. But and so early on in my career, I learned, listen, you cannot be so wed. You can't be married to a strategy just because you wrote it as a strategist, and you shouldn't oppose an idea that's brilliant just because it's off strategy, because that brilliance might actually be the solution to the problem that you hadn't thought about. So, to me, being a strategist is, we talk about it's important for us to be writers as well. Like,
Absolutely.
copywriters aren't the only writers in the office. As a strategist, you have to be a good writer, but you also have to be a thinker, and you have to, and being a good thinker means being open to possibilities.
I totally agree with everything you said. I wish I had worked with you in my agency days, because I think strategists should be considered creative. There's a lot of stupid, dumb creatives that don't have a creative thought in their mind. But I think it's important to sort of have that. It's funny because, like, I'm a writer, and I've done hundreds of TV commercials. Most of them are comedic, oddly enough, but I've done a lot of sort of charming stuff. Anyway, I could write something on a script that looks really funny. I think it's dead on. You show up at the set, and when the actors do it, I'm like, that's not funny. I don't know what I was thinking, but I got to now sort of do my Peyton Manning. But what I wrote on paper wasn't funny. It was funny on paper. Now I got to figure it out. So I think that's, what a lot of people don't understand. They stick to the box that they've created, and even in TV productions, like, you present a script to a client, and if it's not exactly like what's on the script, then they don't approve it, but they don't leave that door open for just dumb luck. Some actor saying something that's like, that's way funnier than what I wrote. So, I appreciate like that mentality. And, I think that's what I mock a little bit on Adweak, is just sort of the box that we create for ourselves and the process that creates those boxes.
I'm laughing and smiling as you're talking, because I'm also scanning the timeline and looking at some of these posts, and I'm just going to blurt them out and put them up on the screen as we talk about them.
We should do that. Yeah.
Breaking: PR agency welcomes second male staffer.
That one kills. I've done it multiple times. It kills every time.
So, because the thing is that, in all honesty,
let me say something to get me in trouble, but because I'm going to come out, I'm doing my own coming out and admit that I'm gay or bisexual. I bet that second male staffer was gay.
Probably. And that's the thing, is like, I'm not saying anything. I'm not making fun of it. I'm just stating the truth. And that's the truth. Every PR agency that I've worked with are a bunch of super pretty girls. And for the right reasons. I get it. I mean, if I had a PR agency, maybe I'd do the same, but they're all just a bunch of pretty girls. And every time I post that, it goes crazy.
Who on the whole variety of titles and activities within an ad agency, do you think you have kind of overlooked? You've gotten everybody, but is there a category that you maybe have been a little bit too light on, that you need to go back to and really skewer some more?
A good question. Like I said, I've been very careful to try to spread the mockery.
Yeah.
Including myself as a
equal opportunity mockery.
Yeah. And then also, like I said before, is I think I've been very careful. Like, a few people message me saying you should do something about this. I have stayed away from politics, gender issue. I've stayed away from anything controversial. I don't need to get into it, and I don't need to be mean-spirited to be funny. So I've stayed. No. There's a couple things I thought I could do, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to get into that, and it's been successful. Not once has anyone ever said, you're tone deaf on this one.
I was going to say, here's a timely one for those of us who are returning to office. It says, breaking: new report finds agency staffers still find working remotely way more productive. But the thing is, it's the same photograph of the art director smoking the bong from the cannabis brand.
Yes. During the whole work from home thing, I've made fun of that a lot. I've made fun of like office managers missing the idea of sending emails about cleaning out the office refrigerator. Like I said, I think to both of your points is like, I thought long time ago, I thought by now this whole thing would be cooked. I would run out of stuff to talk about. I think I did something the other day, and I don't even really know what Chat GPT is, but I know it's the automated copywriting thing.
It's actually a pretty fun tool. I played around with it. I said, write a better tagline for BMW, right? And it wrote, BMW, the ultimate driving machine, go try one today. Or something like that. It didn't make it better, it just made it longer.
Well, I did something with this picture I use over and over again. Looks like a pretty senior type art director, copywriter, and it said something about senior freelance copywriter loses out to someone named Chat GPT. Like he thought that was someone's name.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone in our business has anything to worry about, from at least now. Maybe it'll get better.
I don't think so. We've done this before with the whole, robots. Good content will always sell, and I think that's what we're talking about. Like, they talked about how movies were going to die when Blockbuster came out. It was the exact opposite.
Oh, I mean, how many times have we heard doomsayers? We've also had plenty of people out there who have predicted the future fairly well, but so are you grooming anyone to like take over for you at some point? Or are you just going to keep going?
I'll say this, like when I was like 13, 14, my dad would wake me up on Saturday morning to like at 7 a.m. to mow the lawn. And so I'd groggily get out there and I'd get one pass at mowing the lawn. He's like, God, give it to me. I'll do it. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go inside and have some cereal. And so that's a little bit, I guess, what I get. And, like I said, I get submissions sometimes. And I don't know, a lot of times they just don't make any sense. I will say this is not difficult to do. It's not. It's like I said.
Says the guy who's written 7,000. And he's got a few under his belt.
But I think the key is, and so like you take the most interesting man in the world, right? Like there's a formula there that if you're skilled, any one of us that is a decent writer could come up with things for the most interesting, because the hard part was done, right? Setting up the frame of this is how this works.
Right.
And so if you're getting reader submissions and they're not that good, I think it's probably just because they're not good writers, because the formula, you've got it there. And if you find something that's true and can be phrased using the formula, it's gonna be funny. I mean, I'm looking at 2 right now. Let's talk about clients. Breaking: client chooses campaign she came up with.
That's never happened.
Breaking: client's brother-in-law can shoot it for half the price.
I remember that one. Yes.
And these are all things that that they happened. Like that. Those things happen, and it's I think not unlike you guys write briefs from experience, right? Like personal experience, like things, and I've always sort of lamented, and I was a creative director at my own agency and had to deal with, and I'm not dinging young creatives. We hired a lot of them, but what we do, we draw on life experiences, right? Like, culturally, just personally, but you need that. And like I said, I couldn't write Adweak without a shit ton of experience of dealing with clients and young creatives and old creatives and you name it. I couldn't do it because you'd have nothing in the tank.
George Tannenbaum's blog post today quotes Robert Carroll, the historian who wrote those multi-volume histories about Lyndon B. Johnson.
I think
he said one of the lines that stuck with me from Robert Carroll, and I loved it. He said, Robert Carroll said, time equals truth.
Oh,
and that means the more time you are allowed to take to let something gel and ferment within you, the closer to truth it's going to be. This is true in writing a brief. I'm not a brief writer. Henry's the brief writer. I'm the creative. But I was the guy who said, I'm sick and tired of bad briefs. Tell me what is a good brief. I need to learn what it is. And one of the things I've discovered in learning about that is that if you're given 20 minutes to write a brief, guess what? You're going to get a 20-minute level quality brief. But if you've given a week or a decent amount of time to think about it, to write a multiple drafts, you're going to get a better brief. The same thing with honing our skills as writers. So yeah, I get the sense that what you're saying, when you see submissions, they're not by someone who's honed his or her skills. I mean, could we have extended the absolute campaign? They put an end to that, but the formula was there, but they stopped it. And it could have gone on. I mean, Tom Clancy's been dead for I don't know how many years, but they're still writing books under his name, right? And same with the Jason Bourne author, I forget his name. So you understand the style, you can keep it going. Robert Ludlum, right? And these aren't the only two authors; those are the two off the top of my head. They keep those franchises going because someone with the skill to mimic the author's style or to use the formula that you've created has the ability to carry it on. Whether or not you're going to be able to feel that way about it, we'll find out. But
yeah, and people have said you need to go on Instagram, you need to do this, you need to do that, and right now Twitter and LinkedIn seem to be chugging along just fine. And like I said before, as everybody announces the death of a certain platform or death of TV or death of movies or everything, but I could write a screenplay right now and it won't sell. And I could say movies are dead. Well, it's because I wrote a crappy screenplay. Like if I wrote a great one, like you could say books are dead, but Harry Potter does pretty well.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's just, I don't care where it is, people will consume good content. And but back to the brief, yeah, it takes a lot of creativity, it takes a lot of experience. And I think maybe because it's creative, Ed McCabe once said, who was the great writer from Scally McCabe Slows, he said, when a client kills your work, it's just your chance to do better work. So, and a little bit about what you're talking about, time, but it's also time and feedback. And, it's easy for creatives to present a campaign, client kills it. And then creators like, screw that. And then believe me, there's been multiple times that I presented campaigns to clients and they've killed it. And then, 3 days later, I was like, wow, this is so much better than what I presented.
Henry's shared a story about this, and I've heard it from other creatives too, that there are some creatives out there who, when they get their work killed, they're done. They just walk away.
Absolutely.
There are the true creatives, the ones who really know that what you've just said, will see that as an opportunity. And I think of one of Michael Jordan's more famous quotes when he said, I have failed over and over and over, and that is why I succeed. You have to fall down on your face.
And to your point, one of the things I do every now and then, and I've heard it so many times, it says something about, I can't quote it exactly, even though I wrote it. It says, art director spends half hour bitching and moaning about slight client change before just doing it in 5 minutes.
Right, exactly.
I've seen that happen so many times. You could just get on your high horse. But anyway, that's I think we think a lot alike. And I'm gonna contend. I've looked at sort of extensions of Adweak. Like I said, a publisher came to me and said, we want to do a book with all your tweets. And I told him, I said, well, it's not going to sell because they get it for free online. So, but you can do it. And so they did it. And it's a book. It's out there. Every now and then
I'm going to go look for it. So Mickey, what advice do you have for creatives? We haven't talked to creatives in a while, and so I like to ask a creative, what advice would you have to those who are coming up in the world, thinking about going into the industry?
Well, one of the things, one of my creative directors years ago, his name is Mark Montero, love him to death. And he said to me one time, he said, if I had it my way, I would, when I hired a junior creative team, I would send them on a road trip across America for 6 months. So that they could absorb everything, what it's like to be in the Midwest, what it's like to be in the East Coast, just absorb all this stuff like a sponge, because that's what you draw on. It's easy to like work in LA, San Francisco, and New York and not understand what it's like in Wisconsin or Ohio or how people think. And so that's the one thing that I always said with my creatives that work for me is, I don't want you to work past 5. I want you to go out and experience the world. I want you to see a movie, watch TV, do whatever you want. But it doesn't make any sense for you to be at the agency till 10 o'clock at night. Because those are the things we draw on, is like what people are doing, what they're reading, music they're listening to. Don't be at the agency the whole time, but just go out, and because that's what you're going to draw on. Like I'll give you a quick example. I won't take up more of your time, but we were pitching a restaurant brand, and one of the young creatives came to us with a campaign, and she said, and bless her heart, she was only like 25. She said, you know how the family dinner table is where you share ideas and talk about your day? And I said, you have no idea what the family dinner table is like right now. I was like, half the time I'm standing while I'm trying to eat half a burrito. My older daughter's trying to find her cleats. My younger daughter's on her phone. My wife is like trying to pay. I was like, that's not how it works these days. But she had no knowledge of that.
Ozzie Harriet is dead.
Related to that, here's the one I was looking for, this photo, because it was the one you used always for the junior planner. She's got like this really smug look on her face, and it says, breaking: after a couple of hours of Google research, childless 25-year-old junior planner suddenly expert on mom demographic.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
how did you find that one? That one's an old one.
It's 2017, because I was doing a search. I was trying to find the photo that you use on all the junior planner ones, and so I looked. I did an advanced search on Twitter for junior on your account, and it came up.
Wow.
well,
funny.
Mickey, your story.
I'm a senior planner, so I've honed my skills pretty well at what this young planner did in 2 weeks. I could have done in a couple of hours.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. That's exactly right.
Well, Mickey, what you said about going on the road trip, I think speaks volumes about the sad fact that in our industry, you hit 50 and you're done. When that's just when you're hitting your stride. You really do have not only the muscle memory and the muscle honing of your creative skill, you've got world experience. And you can do in 5 minutes what it takes the junior 5 days.
Absolutely. And you get penalized for that, because I've had clients say, well, it only took you like 2 hours. It's like, well, because we have the experience. And
because
the knowledge.
The 20 years of training that it took you to get there,
Yeah. And that's the whole thing about my dad taking the lawnmower out of my hands, because I had my agency for 20 years, and it was like, let me just do it. I'll just do it, because I could do, like, I don't need you to spend 3 more days on this. Let me just do it. But they need those life experiences. That's what we do, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
That's what we do. We should know what's on Netflix. We should know the music. We should know what people are reading. We should be out there. And like, I know there's an agency that basically was, if you leave before 9 o'clock, then you don't come back.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make any sense to me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you with one last one, since it's the Brief Brothers, and we were talking about ones about the brief. Here's one: breaking: agency planner putting finishing touches on creative brief no one will read.
Yes.
Very serious looking woman staring at the screen.
That kind of speaks for itself, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, like I said, there's a couple of great strategic planners I've worked with, and same with creatives. This goes across the board. So there's like a handful of them. Just having this conversation, I think we should work together somehow. Adweak, just leaving it at this. Adweak is sort of fun, but we're actually, so I did the same thing that The Onion did. The Onion created something called The Onion Labs that works directly with brands. And so I've been getting a lot of, like, over the last few years, a lot of clients that come to me or come to Adweak saying, we love your voice. You get it. You get our pain points. You get the bullshit that goes on with big agencies. We want to work with you. And so that's been people say, well, it's easy for you guys to get engagement because it's not a business. And I was like, bullshit. Adweak is a business. Our real job is creating marketing stuff, ideas. And so I created Adweak Studio, which is basically just a creative a resource for brands or agencies. It's me, and I have a few people that I brought into the fold of, like, when we get projects. So yeah, it is a business, and I call it the Trojan horse, because I don't promote Adweak Studio a lot on Adweek, but I do point out things that, so it's strategic in the sense that I try to point out, like, the problems with big agencies and scope of work and expense and lead times or whatever. And so we get people, like, poking their heads in, and some of them are kind of big dogs. So it's worked in that way, of being, like I said, a Trojan horse. It is a business. Adweek itself doesn't make any money, but it gets us in the door to do other stuff. So I think, like I said, I think we should work together.
That'd be fun. Well, Mickey Taylor, AKA Paul Taylor, AKA the Adweak Editor, who is now showing us his beautiful mug. Henry and I are grateful that you could join us today. Thanks for being part of the Brief Brothers.
Well, thank you for having me. And like I said, it feels good to sort of finally put a face to the multiple names. So there you go. Good
stuff, Henry.
Good stuff, Howard.
He's Henry Gomez.
And he's Howard Eibach. And together, we're the Brief Brothers. Till next time, bye-bye.